Hey everybody, welcome back to the Coming of Cage podcast, your Nicolas Cage movie review podcast. I am one of your two hosts, Derek, and I've got your other host, Ryan, right here. Hello, Ryan.
Right here. Yes, we are both right here.
I mean,
Cage.
From a digital sense, you're right. You're right there.
That's true. You're in our Costa Rican offices, whereas I'm in Kansas City on the precipice of a snowy evening.
Is it supposed to snow?
Tonight, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, what are you gonna do? We are the Coming of Cage podcast. This is episode 44 of the show. We are talking about the 2019 film Kill Chain, starring Nicolas Cage, and a few other people. Enrico Colantoni, right? Enrico Colantoni.
That's right, yeah.
I apologize, Enrico. No offense intended. I didn't do my homework. I apologize.
He's actually a big fan of yours, too, and he can't even pronounce your name. It's sad.
I know. Well, he was Mathazar in Galaxy Quest.
That's what I'm saying.
One of my favorite movies of all time. But you've seen him in other stuff.
Just Shoot Me.
Just Shoot Me, Veronica Mars, a bunch of movies. He's been in a ton of stuff, but I know him best as Mathazar. Annabelle Acosta is kind of like the co-star of the movie, if there is one. So that's, what are you going to do?
An argument could be that she is like the main character of the movie. So,
I mean, I guess we'll get into that.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, we'll get into that. Written and directed by Ken Sanzil. It's about, quote, three strangers' lives are inevitably entangled in a conflict none of them are prepared for. I think I know the three strangers that this is referring to, but there's more than three characters in this movie, so I could be wrong.
And one of them is arguably more prepared than anyone else, so, I mean...
Yeah, one. That's the thing. I'm worried that one of these three is extremely prepared.
Yeah, exactly.
And was like begging for this to happen. But
yeah.
But that's the movie. Ryan, do you want to kind of tell people what we do here?
We do a podcast where we talk about Nicolas Cage.
Whew. We do.
Yeah.
You want to go into some detail about how we go about it, or?
Yeah, I usually take notes throughout the movie, and then we discuss those notes kind of in a... Derek likes to argue that we're not doing them chronologically, but I literally write them down as I'm watching the movie, so they have to be chronological. So...
Look, sometimes your notes are a little vague, and I don't know
true.
which scene
that part
we're
I will
talking
agree
about.
with. Because sometimes there's two scenes that, if you just wrote down the descriptions, they would sound basically the same.
Exactly, yeah, right. So in my head, I jump to the second scene, and right. I get, that's all.
In this movie, I had seen before.
Right.
I suspected when I saw the poster or when it came up on the wheel that I had seen it before. Because there was one day that I was really bored. I was on Hulu, and I was just like looking through, and I was like, "Oh, a Nick Cage movie, a new one," because this was several years ago, and I should watch that. And then I was just horribly disappointed that he's only in like 30 minutes of the movie.
I know, because he's top billing. Like his name is almost as big as the title on the poster, and he's the only person on the poster.
Right.
The only person, the only name. He has top billing.
Probably the third least, or the third amount of screen time.
I mean, definitely not the most.
Right.
In this action thriller that takes place in Colombia. Fun fact, he filmed 2 movies in Colombia that year. 2-for-1 deal. That's the only fun fact I have for the whole movie.
really fun fact, too.
I mean, it was a stretch. That's all I got.
That's a pretty big stretch, yeah.
Yeah.
So the movie starts off with a formula. And maybe you recognize this formula, Derek. Street shot. Shaky cam street shot. Overview of street shot. Then repeat that back from the beginning. And it does that about 7 times through the opening credits.
It does. I hate it. I hate it so much. It
was so bad. One of the worst openings of any of the movies we watched. I mean, just really... You could tell they thought they were being artistic, too, which made it worse. But...
I mean, certainly, like those aerial shots are supposed to look nice, and they're the best part.
They do look
intro.
Nice. I mean, all the shots look nice, but it's just like you can do that each of those once.
Yeah,
and then move on to something else, but doing the same thing over and over again. And we get that same thing later in the movie too.
And like I don't like shaky cam like ever. Right? I'm
Yeah,
not a big I don't like found footage films or anything like that. I just don't I find it distracting at best and at
what
worst
about an action?
disorienting.
What about during
Um
action scenes?
well, like if it's a choreographed thing, that's a little I guess it depends on the quality of the choreography and the cinematography. But when it's just like it's shaky because someone's just holding the camera in the shot, like that's not I don't like that.
Well, after however many years we've been doing podcasts together, you know that my firm belief is that shaky cam and action scenes is just used to hide bad choreography. So
I mean, it certainly
90% of the time.
yeah, I think that that's fair. But like in here, right? Like when the intro is like quote over and they're following these guys out of the car, it's still like somebody holding a camera.
Yeah.
And this movie had a budget of $3.5 million. Like get a steady cam or something. Like just like help me out here a
I'm
little
going to
bit.
bet most of that went to Nick.
$1 million of it went to Nick. I get like he made $1 million. That's usually what he makes on these movies, and then they had 2.5 for everything else.
That's a third of the movie's budget, basically. So,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then we see this blue car, and these two guys get out of it. And because of the intro, where it's just showing a bunch of city streets, you can kind of get the vibe that this is maybe like a Central or South American country. That's about all you can glean from that. But then the first people that we see get out of the car don't appear to be people from that region.
No.
And they're also like this is not a like super high end like rich person area. This is like a pretty normal like business district. Like it's not. My point is that these guys get out in like really nice suits.
They stand out.
And the car is clean. Yeah, I put for my note 2 totally normal, non-suspicious guys. Because they like get out of the car and they like do full 360s of like looking at everything around them, and then they like take a second to adjust their jackets and make sure that their guns like stay underneath the jackets. They do all these totally normal, non-suspicious things in the middle of the night, walking into a little hole in the wall hotel or motel or whatever.
That's a hotel.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Truthfully, I don't know the difference between a hotel and a motel, so
Oh, well, for me, a motel has the doors on the outside, right? So like you enter your room from the outside
interesting.
world, and a hotel there's an interior where your doors
Is
are.
that what the English language defined the difference as those?
I thought it was. It's been a while
That's
since I've
interesting.
looked, but that is my
I had no
definition.
idea, but that works. Um, so yeah, these guys walk into this, this hotel, and we get our first glimpse of the Cage, with rocking a nice tidy beard and some interesting hair,
You didn't like
some
his hair?
glasses. Actually, I don't think he had glasses on at this point. No, his hair was just a little weird in this one. I think he looked good. It was just a weird haircut.
Yeah, I thought he looked good in this.
He looks good almost all the time. So
Yeah. Well, there's movies where they purposely are trying to make him not
that's
look
true.
so good, like yeah,
Yeah,
Adaptation, for example.
yeah,
you know.
that's true. So he's helping these guys, and these guys are like, they're already behind the counter, and he's coming out from upstairs, and so they've already found like his shotgun behind the counter, and these guys are suspicious of him. They seem to know something about him that the audience doesn't know because they know he's carrying another gun, and they have this conversation. And then it cuts to a half naked, bloody woman with a gun
Hmm.
overlooking the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's our introduction to Annabella Acosta's character. And it just shows her a couple times. We don't really get any context in this
Clearly,
first
something's
shot,
gone down.
but clearly something has happened. Yeah, and Nick is having a conversation. These guys are there to kill him. It seems pretty clear, but he says he wants to tell him a story, and then one of the guys is like, "No, just kill him." And then he's like, it tells the other guy, "Oh, you're gonna want to hear this story," and the guy's like, "Sure, let's hear this story." And then it like flashes back. It's gonna be one of those movies.
Now, I gotta ask because I don't remember this. Did it tell us how far back it
No,
flashed? Okay,
not that
I
I
didn't think
noticed anyway.
so. I didn't think so, but I just wanted to double check on that.
Oh, okay. So also I missed the part where when Nick Cage is grabbing his beer and like walking over to the table, he pats the head of a dead guy on a table.
Well, he's pretending he's alive.
I guess, yeah, it was just weird. Like it's clear to the audience that he's dead,
but
but
not our visitors.
not our visitors. And then we get like the '90s sitcom like opening credits where it's just like a bunch of random action shots of the people in the movie, or like up close shots of bullets and guns, that kind of thing. It is really weird though. You had to tell me that wasn't weird. That 10 minutes into the movie, there's this weird second intro.
It felt more of like a TV show intro where you would
Yeah,
introduce the
exactly.
cast each week.
Yeah, that's why I said sitcom, because it was
Yeah,
like, yeah,
but that's the thing. Like, it doesn't feel like a movie intro.
yeah, it's very weird.
It was very odd. Um, a lot of his movies I've noticed, especially the lower end ones, seem to like start multiple times because usually there's a lot of production companies involved in these to
That's
try
true.
and like
There's usually
scrounge up
like
the money.
six companies right at the beginning. You get before the movie even starts, it's 5 minutes of logos.
This was another Saturn production, by the way.
Yeah,
I gotta look into this. Is that his own company? I should have looked into this at this
I,
point, but
I don't know. I've never heard anything about him owning a production company, but maybe
I mean, at this point, Saturn has done like a third of these
they're
movies.
just big fans.
Big fans.
Yeah.
Same, same.
So after this stylized credits, the second opening credits of the movie, we get introduced to Enrico's character, who is only credited as the old sniper. And I mean, to be fair, he doesn't look that old to me. Like in his 50s, maybe. Maybe
Yeah,
early 60s.
I don't know. I mean, I guess let's see. He was born in '63, so he would have been like 60-ish.
It's not that old. Not old enough that I would
Uh,
title the guy Old Sniper. But I guess compared to everybody else in the movie, I mean, Nick Cage wasn't a spring chicken in this movie either. He was like 10 years younger.
yeah,
Anyway, yeah, we get introduced to this character who is calling his daughter, or no, he's calling a guy we don't see, presumably a handler or something, and he asks him about rice cookers because he's thinking of getting one.
a
And
travel one.
yeah, these phone calls are just kind of meant to give us more backstory on this character essentially and what's going on, which was kind of a clever way of doing it, I guess. This is something else about this movie. There's basically like 4 sets in the whole movie. You get like a 30-minute scene or 25-minute scene or whatever with this old sniper character,
hmm
which is all in one room. Then you get the hotel
Right.
that Nick Cage is at. What other sets are there?
The SUV.
Okay, yeah, the SUV. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a couple small scenes in other places, but for the most part, this movie takes place in like these 2 sets.
Yeah.
It was interesting to me. That's how they saved money, I'm guessing.
Oh, sure. Especially because it's just all practical sets. Like this was not
Yeah,
shot
it's
in
a
a studio
location
anywhere.
shoot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But yeah, so then he talks to this guy, and he talks a little bit about whatever job and that he's going to be doing here. Hangs up with that guy, and then he calls his daughter, and he asks his daughter what she thinks about rice cookers. And while he's talking to his daughter, he's assembling a gun, like a big sniper rifle.
Mhm.
And I did find it the actor did a good job with this scene of trying to like be quiet with the assembly of the gun while whenever he was talking, so she wouldn't hear it.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting way to do it. It definitely made that character more believable as someone who does this. He's trying to hide this from his daughter. He's trying to still be a good dad or whatever.
I bought that for sure. Like I thought he did a really solid job of selling the character to me.
Yeah, agreed. He was really good. But yeah, so we get this long scene, and like I said, it's all in this one room. And he's got the sniper rifle built, and he's talking to his daughter, but he's looking out. He knocks some of the blinds off the windows and is looking out the windows at this car, which is the blue car we saw earlier out in the street. And then he's looking around on other rooftops, and he sees another sniper up on a rooftop. And so he backs away, and he isn't sure, I think, at this point if the sniper saw him or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so he calls one of the hookers up that's in the street, because there's 2 hookers that are hanging out right outside on this corner of the whole movie.
I have a bit of a problem with this. So he knows that there's a sniper across the street. He goes out on his balcony on the other side of the corner, because this place is like basically on a corner, to go talk to these prostitutes. Why doesn't the sniper just take him out then?
Well, he sees the sniper pull away as soon as we aren't sure if that's because he spotted him or what. I felt more like that he was going out there to test and see if that sniper was after him. But I don't know. It's a fair question.
No.
Because then he calls one of the prostitutes up to his room, and he tells her he's sitting on a couch away from the windows, and she like gets down like she's gonna do something for him, and he throws some money onto the couch and says, go stand in that window over there. And then he starts asking her questions about what she sees, including that blue car. She says the blue car's gone, and he says, take your top off.
Mm-hmm.
So then we got nudity, which was on the bingo card.
Yep.
And so she takes her top off and then goes to the window again. And then he gives her more money and says, go surprise my friend that's on this other rooftop. Because I guess he recognized the other sniper.
Well, he recognized the gun, it turns out.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, because he says, I recognize
green
that
something.
cute green, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he sends the girl over to that rooftop and, to surprise him. And he says he'll give her the rest of the money after the job is done. And so she goes over there and he takes her hostage essentially and calls the guy, and he cuts her throat.
Yeah.
Which was dark as hell.
It's a dark movie.
It kind of makes you go, this old sniper guy, he seems like a nice guy. Like he's trying to be a good dad and everything else, but he like was 80% sure that girl was not going to come back.
Oh yeah, I think there's clearly a huge difference between a good person and someone who like loves his daughter. Right? Like those,
guess,
this is not a good dude. He's an assassin. He kills people for a living,
Yeah, but I mean, there's rules with that. You could probably be a good person and be an assassin.
I mean, not the type of assassin he is, because he just gets calls to shoot who knows whoever, and then they cross each other all the time. What we find out
everybody's
later.
Double crossing everybody.
Right,
triple cross.
It's just it's too many. It's too much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, casual murder I had, which is on our bingo card also. Which the prostitute, I kind of thought that was casual murder.
I mean, I consider it that, because at first it seems like a hostage situation, and he clearly kills her without needing to.
Right. So I can't remember the context of this. Oh, okay. So I think maybe I remember this. I wrote down driving the whole way with emergency lights on.
Driving the whole way with.
So there was a car. I thought, was this maybe the police car?
Oh, hang on. What was that? I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, it was a police car. Yeah. So the guy this other assassin guy, right? They have a bit of a shoot off. Yeah. And supposedly he kills our old sniper guy.
Yeah, he thinks he killed that guy. We, as an audience member, don't really know what happened. We saw the guy was hiding behind a mattress, and the guy shot it like 30 times.
And he was wearing a bulletproof vest, and so like we don't know.
Yeah, and he had already taken a shot to the chest, and the bullet just came out. So we knew that it was a possibility that we didn't see a body. He's probably alive.
So the other sniper is just like walking around, and he's answering the phone. So he's going to this stripped out car to get his payment out of the gearbox or whatever. And while he is doing that, these supposed I guess they are cops. We do learn they are actually cops. They pull up in this SUV that's had its lights going for like a block.
Yeah. Well, even after that. But so yeah, when the guy gets his payment, the MacGuffin of the movie essentially is a bag of diamonds.
Right.
And that's what he gets paid in. He was expecting money, but it was a bag of diamonds. And so then these cops pull up to like take him in. Mm-hmm. Essentially, these crooked cops. And they put him in the back with one of the cops. And then the other cop is driving.
Right.
And the whole way that they're driving. They're like going down dark alleys and stuff like that. It seems like they're trying to stay away from getting attention, but their emergency lights are on the entire time.
Yeah.
Like they are going to like an abandoned parking lot that's specifically away from everybody else, and they still have their emergency lights on for whatever reason. And yeah, that sniper guy is trying to get in the heads of these cops, and he's like, well, whichever one of you kills the other one first and lets me go, I'll give you $500,000. And and he's like, oh, the other guy's thinking about it. You better do something quick if you're gonna like. He's clearly manipulated people before in his life.
He's not dumb.
He's not a good person either.
No.
At this point, it's kind of showing that, but yeah. So he's doing all this.
To be fair, other than the daughter on the phone, the old sniper's daughter, I don't know that there is a good person in this movie.
No, that's fair. So yeah, so the guy cop that's sitting in the back with this sniper guy is he's getting really annoyed because the guy keeps speaking Spanish to the driver, and this other guy is a white guy that doesn't speak Spanish.
Right.
And so he's getting annoyed. He keeps saying, speak English, whatever. And the guy doesn't. So he punches him multiple times, and then eventually just shoots him. More casual murder.
That one's less casual, but because I think in that one he's just so stressed out that like this dude's getting in their heads that he just like loses it.
Well, he just goes from punching in the face to murder really quick. I guess that's why I put it as casual. But
gotcha.
But either way, we had already had casual murder before that. So, but yeah. So then they start fighting, the guy in the front and the guy in the back, because this guy has these diamonds and stuff, and I'm assuming they both want them. So there was a potential for a really cool action scene here.
Yes.
But instead it was really bad. The guy in the front points his gun back at the guy in the back, who has the body of the dude laying across him, and is threatening to shoot him, blah, 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 blah. Keeps threatening. And then they have like a shootout while the guy's driving. And they both fired probably 20 shots at each other while the car's moving, and neither of them are hitting each other. And they're 2 feet away from each other. And these are supposed to be police officers. And eventually the car stops, and, then they can get out of the car and make it a little more interesting, but it doesn't really get any more interesting. The most interesting thing, the way it ends, is that one of the guys crawls under the SUV that they're driving, and the other guy uses the legs of the dead guy.
It's clever
to trick the guy that's under the car. And the guy shoots the ankles, and then the other guy that just held the corpse out pops on the other side and pops the guy in the face. And that's game over.
Could you imagine this scene in like a John Wick movie?
I mean, it would have been way better. Yeah, there was a good premise there, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
My next note says she's been going through the first aid. But okay, I remember. So the guy did get shot. The white guy survived. Yeah, the white guy. And so he runs to his girlfriend, presumably girlfriend, maybe wife, this person that he's with.
They're together.
And it is the girl that we saw half naked
at the beginning of the movie.
At the beginning of the movie, that was covered
in blood. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he shows up and like starts taking his shirt off, and there's like this huge wound, and she starts rifling through this first aid box for like during their conversation, because she's going to take care of him. And she spends this whole like it's probably a 10-minute conversation just looking. It's a small first aid box too. It's not like a paramedic box. It's like a small one you get at Walmart. And she's looking through this thing for probably 10 minutes. And I don't know what she was looking for that she couldn't find. Like, there's not a lot of stuff to treat a gunshot wound in those kits, but I'm sure she could have found something. But yeah, that was just a way to make it look like her character was doing something through this exposition scene. And so yeah, they hear these guys coming in. Some guys. Do we know who those guys were? I don't remember. Oh no, it was the really bad woman.
Yeah, so she the girl who is with the cop, she, I guess, had a relationship with this other woman who's like a gangster woman.
Yeah. And she's literally
And
credited as the very bad woman.
right, like, so that's why it's hard to have a conversation about this because none of these characters have names.
Yeah.
So okay, Renata is the character we see at the beginning of the movie who is shirtless, covered in blood. She's the girlfriend of the cop and ex of the bad woman. Okay,
Right.
that's Renita. So we have a name there. But yeah, so the bad woman and her gang of people are coming after Renita and Lance, the white cop.
Yeah.
There we go.
And so they show up, and he's like, "Take the diamonds and go. I'll cover you," or whatever. And so she starts running. And I do want to note that there's been several instances throughout the movie so far of people speaking Spanish and it using subtitles, and it's just normal subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, during this conversation, she says something to him and starts running down a dark hallway, and then the subtitles turn sideways and shoot off into the darkness, like WordPress or like with the old Microsoft Word, effects. You didn't notice this?
I don't think mine did that.
Mine definitely did that. It was super weird. It was the only subtitle that did that the whole movie, and I have no idea why.
I definitely don't remember it doing that.
Man,
I watched it on
like
Amazon.
I feel like I'm gonna have to get that scene and show it to you now because it's so weird. I did not understand why this happened.
That's bonkers.
Yeah, it was very weird. Yeah, so I just had weird subtitle effects for the note. Yeah, so then she gets away and she finds this guy that's like loading produce or unloading produce or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she is like, she's holding him at gunpoint essentially and telling him that she needs to go somewhere and that he needs to take her there. And she's like weirdly flirting with him the whole time. Did you think that was weird? Her boyfriend or whatever just died, like probably died, and
oh yeah. Well, she heard him like screaming for his life before she left
she was
that
running
building.
away. Yeah,
right. Like he at best he was being tortured.
Right.
And yeah, like so he's kind of like glancing back at her, and she's like changing her clothes, right? And so first off, like, dude, she's got you at gunpoint. You're scared enough to take her wherever you're going to be going, but you're not too scared to like trying like.
But she also says during the scene, "Feel free to look, but don't wreck us."
But that's after she catches him looking.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm in this guy's spot, I'm thinking if I look and she doesn't want me to, she's going to blow my head off.
Except that she needs you to get somewhere.
I mean, only so far.
Also, I think before this, at some point, she like caressed his face.
Yeah, she was. It was very weird.
It was an awkward scene. Yeah, so I had in my notes weird flirting with guy you're holding up.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, I mean, I guess high stress situations make people horny. I don't know, but she goes to this hotel where she's supposed to meet somebody named Aranya.
Mm-hmm. Which we learn is Spanish for spider.
Right. And we also learned that if you go to IMDb before you watch this movie, that the entire twist is spoiled for you.
I know. So funny. I'm glad I didn't look.
Anyway, so she goes to this hotel where Nick is working, and Nick is in glasses, which is a point on the bingo card.
Bang.
So we actually get like 5 different bingo slots in like the first 5 minutes we get with this character. We got Nick in glasses.
Yes.
Nick drinks alcohol.
Uh-huh.
Which there was an implied one earlier, but we didn't actually see it.
Right.
Nick smokes. Nick's younger love interest.
Uh-huh.
That's it. That's actually it right there. There's more later, but yeah, that's
they're pretty.
That
quick.
was 4.
Yeah.
Bang, 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 right away. In a movie called Kill Chain, it's not that surprising. It was more just a matter of time when we're going to get these. And I do want to say also that there's some of these that we're going to have to discuss on the board that we're questionable about.
Okay.
Maybe you can lend some clarity to.
Well, so that's important. So for those of you who don't know, we play Cage-O Bingo every time we watch a movie, and we film us discussing our bingo. We find out if we got a Cage-O Bingo or not, and so you can go to comingofcage.com or check out our YouTube channel to find the videos for that.
And you should check this one out because this one was a contender. I will say that.
Very interesting.
I will say that. Yeah, so Nick Younger love interest, we already got into that because she starts flirting with him immediately. And then fucks him like right away also.
Also, almost immediately.
Yeah, like within the first 5 minutes of meeting. Yeah, but I had a note that says this dialogue is terrible because the way look, we've covered this that Nick gives his all in every performance. And I think he was doing the best he could with what he had. And he was I actually thought he was pretty good in this movie, even considering how bad the dialogue was. But the dialogue between him and Renata was terrible.
Yeah, like
It just wasn't like real people talk. It was
no,
more like the Juno school of script writing, where you just have to be clever and speak really quickly, that kind of thing.
I think that's fair. It was like they each were in on some like secret code language that the audience wasn't in on. Because like the scene later where Nick is like monologuing to the two guys who came in at the beginning of the movie, like it's actually that's a
The
really good
goods, yeah,
scene.
yeah,
I like that scene a lot.
yeah.
That scene alone like elevates the movie for me because I love that scene. But yeah, like the two Renata and him talking, like I don't
It's like two different movies, essentially, how bad one is versus how good another scene is.
I'm not even sure what they were saying some of the time, like what they meant, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm
That's the
not.
thing, is like I feel like the scriptwriters were just like, this sounds clever. We're gonna have them say that.
It was so weird.
But then also Nick says hola at one point, which is another
Does
square
he?
on the bingo card for Nick speaks another language. Even though he isn't fluent in it, we didn't really specify that.
Nowhere do we say it had to be fluent. He just has to speak it.
That's true. So you didn't have that one marked?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Okay.
I couldn't remember. I was like, I feel like he did because like everybody else is speaking Spanish at some point in this movie. So like, I feel like he did, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah. So he goes up and has sex with this chick, and while they're doing it, or after, shortly after, during the cleanup phase, this very bad woman, comes in with her protector or whatever a young kid with her.
Yeah, I don't
That
know.
it was supposed to be intimidating, I think, but he was mostly just like really rude to a service person.
Yeah, everybody's so mean in this movie.
Yeah. Like, so Nick is upstairs finishing up with the girl, but he's not at the desk. So these two come in, and the dude that's with the very bad woman is just pressing the bell on the counter constantly, like ding 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 ding
So
ding 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 ding
annoying.
ding ding, and constantly. And Nick comes out and comes downstairs, and he's still staring at Nick and ding 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 ding. And Nick like does the signal like what, and he says that's not gonna make me move any quicker. And the guy is just like has this shit-eating grin on his face. Yeah, that he was just an asshole.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, immediately Nick drugs him and kills him.
Jumps ahead a little bit,
A
man.
little bit. I mean,
It's a good scene.
the woman is asking, did this girl come in? Essentially, and he's
Yeah.
like, yeah, she's up in that room. And he goes and unlocks the door for her. He knocks on the door. Nobody answers because she is in a different room, probably his room where they banged.
Yeah.
And so he lets her in, and he says, "I'm going to leave you to look around," or whatever. Maybe he doesn't say that, but he walks out and goes downstairs and asks if the kid wants a beer, and so he or a whiskey or something.
He
And
asks
so
him
he
if he wants a drink. Yeah.
pours him a drink and pours himself a drink, and he laced the kid's thing with like 100 pills, and so he dies with like foam coming out of his mouth. Ugh.
I thought that scene was really good. It's really interesting. Like the scenes that Enrico are in and the scenes that Nick are in feel like they're from a different movie than the rest of the movie. And
Yeah,
maybe it's just because those two actors just elevate whatever it was that they were given in this case. But I like those parts of the movie.
right. So the chick that he had sex with, Renata,
Renata.
um, and the very bad woman run into each other, and there's a fight, and the chick, like Nick, comes up there and tries to help, but he doesn't want to kill this woman, and then the other chick steps in and stabs the shit out of her like 100 times.
Well, then later he's like, well, I assumed you had a gun in your purse.
Right,
And she's like, well, I did, but I got to the knife first.
right, and
Oh, that
so
made me laugh.
now we see her covered in blood, and
That's
we
so
feel like we're getting close to the beginning of the movie, even though we're in the middle of the movie. And so yeah, Nick sees that blue car pull up, and the two totally non-suspicious guys get out,
And so now we've connected to
Now
the
we've connected to the beginning of the movie. Yeah, we see her walk out and take her shirt off to where she's just in a bra and like skirt and bloody, skin. Um,
that's a weird way of saying.
yeah, I don't know.
I don't know
Sorry,
what the...
that was a weird way of saying it. Whatever, it happens. You got the point. So at this point, these guys, we're back to the beginning where they started asking about the story, and so Nick starts talking about the story, and he knows these guys are some sort of intelligence team or something. They're assassins essentially of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where
and they're I just want to point out what they're credited as, by the way, in this movie. So you have Alimi Ballard, who I thought he did actually a pretty good job in this. I've seen him in a couple of other things. He's the curious assassin.
yeah, I've seen him in other things too, and he's pretty much always good. I've never really had an issue with him. So
And then there's Pedro Calvo, who I don't think I know. There's no picture of him on IMDb. He is the mean assassin.
right, and one of them is a jerk, the one that didn't want to hear the story, and then the other one is the one that does the curious one that wants to listen to the story. So at this point, through a bunch of lore dump, essentially a big lore dump, we find out that Nick Cage was what these guys are at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where things start to get sticky. We can discuss it on the bingo card if you want when we do that, or we can discuss it now. But there's two boxes that could potentially be checked.
Okay.
Whether he's former criminal or former military, because it's not. He was a mercenary. That's as best as we hear. We don't know that he was employed by a government. And so I think that would technically be a criminal, a mercenary.
Oh no, I think it's pretty black and white that he's a criminal.
Okay, because it sounded like he was running ops for the government.
No, he might have at some point. Like that part's unclear. So I think like whether he's a government or military employee at some point like that, I think you're right. That's unclear. But he was an assassin, and they did terrible bad things.
Right.
Right. Okay. So like he's
definitely. So I mark
that
box now. Fair enough. Okay, so yeah, we find out that that they were on him and Franco, who this hotel is named after. That Nick has given several stories.
No, Franco is named after the hotel. Because there's a great little line about how he bought the hotel and changed his name because it was cheaper.
Right. I forgot about that. Yeah, anyway, Franco, he was his partner in this game, essentially, this mercenary game. And they were doing a job, and they were supposed to like secure this cargo, and the cargo was a bunch of young girls, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't like take these young girls to do whatever they were going to do with them, and so they essentially like let these young girls go. Three of them, I think it was, got captured. Or four of them, maybe, I don't know. And then one of them went with Franco as like an adopted daughter kind of situation. And to get out of the game, he opened this hotel, or he bought this hotel, whatever. And him and Nick kind of worked it together, or they were friends. I don't really know what he was doing in the meantime, but he was at the hotel a lot because they didn't want to pay for another set, so they just showed him playing poker in the hotel all the time or whatever.
Yeah.
So in this lore dump, we find out that the guy, the sniper guy that was shooting at the old sniper that got captured by the cops, he was the one that killed like the four girls from this. He burned them alive, essentially. And the old sniper was there and just couldn't do it. So the other guy did it, just to kind of show how bad of a guy he is, apparently.
And that's Sanchez. He's the one who we see, killed with the two cops.
Right. Yeah. So that kind of connects those guys, and
it's like they're trying to tier these people, right? So like Sanchez is like the worst of the worst, right? But Nick and the old sniper, they're not so bad. These guys,
they're less bad. Yeah. It's who's then there's no one on the good spectrum. It's like all like bad and lower.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking it through as we were talking. Like, there are three good people in this movie: the two prostitutes and the daughter.
And technically, you could say that the prostitutes are not necessarily. I mean, they're doing an illegal activity.
I mean,
So
I know it's Colombia. Is it illegal in Colombia?
I don't know. That's true.
I don't know.
I'm not going to judge them. There's a lot of prostitutes that are probably great people. Sex workers treat them well. They're just people. Anyway, um, yeah. So we find out here that Franco's daughter got murdered, and it was the cops that killed the sniper guy
Mm-hmm.
that murdered his daughter. Uh, and so then we get I feel like there was a lot of lore dumping. This was the scene that Derek was talking about earlier that he really liked. And I really liked the Nick parts as well, but there was a lot of like cutting to other people where you don't really see Nick telling the story, you just see the story from somebody's perspective. And so there's a lot of stuff, and I probably missed some stuff. But I have Nick shoots a gun as my next note, because all the way up to this point he hadn't shot a gun.
Right. So basically, they're having this back and forth, right? And the curious assassin's like, so you want to die, right? Because the idea here is that Nick basically let them catch up with him because he stood still too long, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we find out that no, he doesn't actually want to die. He's luring everybody here so he can kill everybody who's after him.
And he does say something about how there's money up in the safe and the keys over here and blah blah blah. And he's like, I don't care about the money. And he's like, well, I know you don't, but the person I've really been talking to this whole time does care about that. Yeah, and that sets off. She starts shooting from the rafters or like the upper level. Yeah, Renata. And so then that's when the gunfight starts and Nick starts shooting. It wasn't bad enough that I would say bad action scene. None of them were bad enough for that.
I wasn't sure if I was going to get to this when we talked about the bingo card, but I wasn't sure if the car scene was bad.
It wasn't bad in the sense that, like, I don't know. It wasn't bad. It was mediocre. Like, it was. It could have been. There's a lot of potential there. The wasted potential is sad, but it wasn't what I would consider a bad action sequence. But it wasn't a good one.
I agree with you, but the way you had talked about it, I wasn't sure. So
yeah, I didn't put it. I didn't mark that box on this movie, but he does at one point though bash a guy in the face with a gun.
He does.
Does that count as a melee weapon then?
In my opinion, it does.
Okay, well then let me mark that box.
If you hit a person with something other than a part of your body, right? I consider that to be a melee weapon.
But it is technically you're hitting him in the face with a ranged weapon.
But you're using it in a melee mode.
It's true. I'm just being rude. I'm just starting an argument for the sake of argument.
That's not like he threw a bat at somebody. Then we'd have a real question, because then he would have a projectile that was a melee weapon.
That's true. So Renata is like helping him during this fight, and the mean assassin is like the one going after her, and she has a baseball bat or something. She has some melee weapon, and he has. Or they were both run out of bullets, I think.
At the exact same time.
Convenient. And then he pulls out a gun that he had taken from Nick earlier.
Yeah. And
he goes to shoot her with that, and the gun backfires into his eye.
That's pretty gross.
It was gnarly. It was a cool idea. But the fact, how would Nick have planned that? Like, that seems so...
Well, he says it later in the movie that, like, back in my day, we were trained to not use a strange weapon, without checking it. So, like, my thought process
then why does he think that they're not trained to do that then? Why wouldn't he think that the training was the same?
I think he was just going to roll the dice with it and basically disable the gun. So either way, it can't be used against him.
But then he can't use it either.
But I think he knew, like, he saw these guys come in. He knows more or less who they are. He might not know them personally, but he knows what they are. And so he's going down there. He knows they're going to check him for a weapon. He doesn't want it used against him. He thinks maybe it'd be suspicious if he didn't have one on him because they're going to check him for it, right? So this way it's a win-win. Either it's tampered with and they know that, so it's not used against him, or what happens.
Essentially, it's set up that this guy is basically Batman, and if you give him prep time, then... he can defeat Thanos by himself.
I mean, Nicolas Cage? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. So after these two assassins are killed, they win. Big surprise. Renata and Nick Cage win.
Now, hang on. Don't say big surprise. We have on our bingo card, Nick dies at the end.
True.
There's a reason.
But I think that she would have won either way. Like, she's clearly the protagonist.
Right.
So yeah, he goes or she figures out, oh, you're the Aranya, aren't you? The
Yep.
big surprise, which if you go to IMDb, Nick Cage is credited as Aranya. So big spoiler there. But yeah, he goes up into this other room that he has avoided going into throughout the movie. There's a couple
Hmm.
times where he's like paused outside this door, but he goes in there, and on the ground is the old sniper
It's kind of like
still
an original
alive.
Saw moment there,
Yeah,
you know.
just kind of leaned up against the wall, bleeding out, and this is the point where we find out that that guy watched the little girls burn.
Hmm.
So it's kind of more fuel to the fire, as it were, for him being a bad guy.
Well, because he makes some comment earlier on about like the guy on the phone's like, you need to get laid or whatever, and yeah, he says not since my daughter was 14 or
Yeah,
something, and I was like, that's a weird line. That doesn't. And
yeah.
then by the end of the movie, you're like, oh, because he feels extremely guilty that he was part of killing all of these kids. So like, okay,
The kids that were presumably going to be sex trafficked or something like that. They were young girls, so who knows what they were going to be? Drug mules. I mean, not a good life in any case.
no,
Um, but yeah, the sad dad. That's why I had him in here as sad dad. Um, he asks Nick Cage to call his daughter and tell her to run because his employer is going to be coming after her or something. Or basically asked Nick Cage to take care of his daughter.
yeah.
And so, Nick kills the guy, puts him out of his misery. And that's like the end of the movie. He walks out of the hotel into a car,
And he's calling, yeah.
yeah, he picks here. He has the phone dialing. Yeah. So
Clearly like setting up a sequel that we'll never see.
yeah, it was setting up like that he's going to go. Presume that he was going to go like try and save the daughter
Hmm.
of this guy. I don't know, but yeah, this might be our shortest podcast ever because
That's the movie.
that's the whole movie. It was, like I said, two sets, and apart from like one big lore dump scene, it was, I don't know, it was fine.
It's got its moments. I like all the stuff with the old sniper. I like most of the stuff with Nick, especially that kind of monologue scene I was talking about. But I also like the beginning scene with him too, and the way he interacts with those guys and all that. I like all of that stuff. It looks pretty good, like like you're
Well, it
saying,
came
like,
out in 2019, so it's a pretty modern movie.
well, no, yeah, I just mean that like the sets look good, and the kind of gunplay sequences looked fine. None of it looked like bad. It was just kind of a odd story with a lot of very unlikable characters that are loosely connected to each other. It's still very unclear how Nick knew this was all going to happen.
Yeah,
Um, Supposedly he got like word out that he was going to give Renata like a new identity so she could escape and all this other stuff, but like obviously that turns out to not be true, so he just like lied to get her to bring the bad woman. um I don't know, the names of these characters make it just kind of silly to have a conversation about it,
right.
but I mean, yeah, and there's just not a lot going on here.
Yeah, not a lot to talk about. So at this point of the podcast is where we would normally rate the movie for caginess, which is like, the cage rage or whatever you want to call it, the amount of like over the top performance from Nick Cage, and then also overall quality. So where are you at on overall quality?
I mean, overall quality, like it's certainly not bad, and I would rather watch this over like a lot of the ones that we saw, like Rage, for example.
Yeah, or
Um,
Next, or it's a little higher than his average movie, I would say.
yeah, I mean, so part of me wanted to put it at like a 9 or 10.
Well, 10 would
Just
be, I would think, average.
yeah, I'm trying to think. Did I give anything a 10? I'm just looking real quick. I don't think I've ever given anything a 10. Oh, I did. City of Angels and 8mm were both a 10, and The Frozen Ground. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is right in line with those for me too.
So two tens.
Yeah,
Okay. So for caginess, I mean, there's a couple of moments where he gets a little cagey in a couple of scenes, but again, like he's not in a lot of the movie. Number one, So I mean, I think I'd give it like a 3 because I think it's more than Frozen Ground.
I was actually thinking a 3 also.
Okay,
So I think
look
we're
at that.
dead on this one.
Okay, so 3 on caginess, 10 on quality. So that puts it, middle of the road kind of movie there. So that's that, and then we have to figure out what movie is going to join our Wheel O Cage. We spin our Wheel O Cage to determine what movies we talk about, and we have to add a movie to that wheel. And so we'll be adding Grand Isle, which I know nothing about. So that's going to join the wheel. And so to find out which Nicolas Cage movie we're going to talk about next time on the show, be sure to go to comingofcage.com and check out our Wheel of Cage spin. We're going to talk Cageo Bingo. You can catch lots of our stuff there. We're on YouTube. If you want to see us talk about this stuff, you can go to the Derrico Studios channel on YouTube and subscribe to us there. And Ryan, anything else on Kill Chain?
I hope I don't have to watch this movie again.
A third time?
Yeah.
I mean, I rather would have rewatched this one than Racing with the Moon, which is the one I accidentally watched once and had to rewatch. So
that's a good point. Yeah. Well, you've almost done that twice. There's been a couple occasions where I saved you the second time.
Yeah.
From watching the wrong movie. So
it's tough, man, because I'll remember the movie we added to the wheel, and I'll think that's the one to watch, not the one that the wheel picked. And
see, I've started adding the name of the movie to my journal. I like at the top of the page on my journal where I take my notes, I write the name of the movie. And so, yeah, whenever we spin the wheel and pick the movie, I just write that in the book. And then that way I know I don't have to go and bug you, 2 weeks later going, oh, what movie am I supposed to watch again?
That's smart. Yeah. I need to get better at it.
You need a whiteboard by your computer so you just write it up there or something. Yeah, exactly.
I'd like that. Right here would be.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for us this week. We are the Coming of Cage podcast, comingofcage.com, at Coming of Cage, whatever, podcast app of choice stuff. I'm Derek. That's Ryan.
Indeed it is.
We'll catch you next time.
Kill Chain. That was just a horrible nightmare of noises you just made. I feel like you did that just to be an asshole.
I did. I forget how sensitive you are to that. I'm sorry.